And we're live. Welcome to the front row seat, everybody, where it's all about you because you're doing it. Today, I have with me someone very special. I have Tom Campbell. Tom Campbell is a physicist and one of the world's leading experts on consciousness. In 2003, he wrote a groundbreaking book called My Big Toe, toe meaning theory of everything. Since writing his book in 2003, Tom has dedicated his life and energy to assisting others and helping humanity see bigger pictures, evolve, and grow. Today, I have such a warm welcome to my friend and mentor, Tom Campbell. Welcome, Tom.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. It's always fun to be here and have a discussion with you.
I always enjoy having you here. It's sometimes, the concepts are so big, it's sometimes hard to wrap my brain around it, but I do go and work to understand and try to move forward with my life and help those around me move forward with theirs. And that's kind of why I do my channel. I just want to get the information out there because I know how much it helped me.
That's good.
We have had some interesting things happening in the work that myself and some other people have been doing. It's a group of us, and we've been working on bringing communities together. And it just was kind of serendipity. It just kind of happened, and then there was two channels that the information was very similar with the same underlying themes. The ideas that are bubbling up are around, well, maybe we're just in a simulation because we are, me and a lot of other people are recognizing that we have a tie to this realm, and that what we think and what we feel, it affects it. And so if that's, what's happening in our lives, then that means it can't be a completely materialistic mechanism, realm that we live in here. There's got to be something else. And, there's a lot of people that, are able to go into other realities and do a lot of things, go out of body. And there's just not a lot of explanation for it going on out there. It's, you really have to work through to try to find some of it. So as the people were, coming together and talking about things, we just saw it as some kind of breakthrough, like it's the beginnings of, us starting to realize that this isn't a physical reality we live in. It's more of, like a simulation that we interact with. And I was just wondering if you could talk around these concepts about community, how people coming together, the information flows better, when people come together from different belief systems and things like that. And how, when that process happens, how it presents bigger pictures of things you haven't seen before. And it can give us better understandings of what is going on here, Tom.
Okay, well, to begin with, of course, if I have to describe our life here on this, what we call the physical matter reality or our physical universe, I'd say it's just this, that stuff happens and we get to deal with it, right? That's basically the way life works. So if you spend all of your time trying to manipulate what the stuff is that's going to happen, which is what most people do, then you're really missing the point of being here. It's not to get all that stuff to happen the way you want it. That's not the point. The point is to deal with the things that happen in a way that's positive and caring and cooperative, in a positive way. It's to take whatever happens, and sometimes hard things, tough things happen, and sad things happen, and surprising things happen, and wonderful things happen, but it's all part of life. And that stuff will just keep on happening, and the consciousness system will make sure that the stuff that happens is just the stuff we need to take the next step in growing up. And it just tends to work that way. So if you focus on the choices you make dealing with that stuff that happens, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where, you get to evolve or de-evolve, is in those choices.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to stuff happening, if the only thing that's happening in your life is the same old stuff, today's just like yesterday, and yesterday was just like the day before, and you're kind of in a rut where there doesn't seem to be much stuff happening, well, that's because you've probably created that rut, because that rut is safe. It's a safe place you've been over and over again, and you feel comfortable there, and you really like to stay in that safe place. And when things kind of get a little rocky or bouncy outside, it's a little frightening. So a
Yes.
lot of people like to find a rut and crawl in it and stay there. But that doesn't help you grow up very much. And when you are ready to grow, that means you've come to the conclusion that growing up is what you're all about and you're ready to do it. Then the more interesting stuff starts happening. And when we have to deal with things, if we have a great variety in the things we deal with, if there's lots of diversity in those things we deal with, then we have more potential for making good choices. We have, different ways to learn. If we have lots of diversity, then there's, lots of paths for which we can go down to learn. If we don't have much diversity, again, we're kind of in a rut, then the opportunities for learning are just the same old opportunities you had yesterday, and yesterday you didn't learn anything at all. So the probability you're going to learn something today is not that high. So one of the ways that you increase this opportunity for learning is to go interact with people, new people, all kinds of people.
Yep.
Not just the people you usually interact with, but just people. So when you're talking about community, well, community basically is a group of people who share something, some ideas, some attitudes, some feelings, and that forms a community. It also forms a little collective consciousness. If you are a member of that community, when you join that community, then as a part of it, you start to get that collective consciousness, and you tend to act a little more and think a little more like those people just for being with them.
Right.
And they think and act just a little more like you because now you're a new member.
Mm-hmm.
But you're just one and they're many. So the change is greater for you than the change that you cause for them, typically, but not always.
Correct.
But this diversity idea is a really important idea. So you not only want to join communities, connect, and if you don't know what kind of communities to do that, well, just think a little bit about what am I interested in? What kind of people would I like to meet? And then where am I going to find those people? Okay, so then you start looking around, It just depends on where your interests are.
Mm-hmm.
There's a group of people, probably 100 groups of people for every possible subject, that could possibly be out there. You just have to hunt a little bit to find them. And then when you do, go join, become part of their chat room, become part of their, their story, and see how their story differs from your story. Because again, that's where you learn.
Right.
Seeing how your story is the same as their story gives you some confidence about your story, but finding out what the differences are and exploring those with an open mind, that's where most of the learning is going to come from.
Right.
So don't just join one other community, join 2 communities or 3 communities or 10 communities, as much as you have time for.
Right.
It's just a matter of time. You have other responsibilities, things you have to do, but when you are available to have time, instead of sitting in front of a TV set or some other thing that is a zero kind of activity, it doesn't really give you anything, then go find some people to hang out with and chat, and things will start to happen, particularly as you connect with these people. Don't just stay on the outside listening. You can do that for a little bit to begin with, but get in and get to know them, because that's where most of the learning comes from, is our relationships with people. And the amount we can learn from people is proportional to how deeply we get to know them. If we just know people very superficially, we don't really learn too much about them. If we keep a distance in our relationships, never get too deep with anybody, then our learning never gets too deep either. But if we, connect, get involved, take on some responsibility with that group, do things, then you get to know them better. And the differences, again, are where most of the learning takes place. Because when you deal with other people, you have to deal with other perspectives. Everybody lives in their own reality, and you have to deal with those viewpoints, and they may be very different than yours, but you have to deal with them with respect and with care, that you don't, push somebody's button because you didn't realize they were all wound up about a particular subject. So you have to get to know them. So diversity is a really important thing. And, diversity in all things is helpful. You have to be open to it. You have to be, kind of, how can we say, reach out and connect with diverse things. Now, unfortunately, a whole lot of people, probably most of us, shy away from diversity. Oh, those people are different than me, so you kind of walk around them, or you don't connect to them, or you avoid them because you only want to talk to people who are just like you. Well, that's the opposite of diversity.
It is. We want familiarity, right?
Yeah.
It's the unknown can be scary.
Yeah. And we like familiarity. We like things to be easy. So we avoid diversity. And matter of fact, a lot of people, they are frightened by diversity. So when they run into people who are different than them, it's scary.
Yeah.
And they automatically don't like them.
Yeah.
And sometimes that, if they have really, big ego problems, that dislike can turn into, I hate them, just because they're different, just because they're not like you. And they don't necessarily share your notion of reality or your values or other things. But even those people that you think are really off on the edge and lost, they're people just like you. They have dreams and ideas and things they need, things they have to give. And the more you get to know people who are different than you, the bigger your picture will get.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the, in the past, that usually had to do with travel. People who traveled a lot were said to be sophisticated. They had bigger pictures. They understood things more.
Right.
Because they saw more, they interacted with more people, and they got appreciation for the differences. Now, people who didn't travel always stayed about the same place, never moved very far from where they were born, just stayed there. They were called provincial because they had very small viewpoints about how things worked and how people were. And now, physical travel isn't necessary. You can meet people from all over this planet with all sorts of ideas and all sorts of ways of thinking easily online. So suddenly you don't need a lot of money to travel. Travel is expensive.
It is.
And often it's very hard. It's a difficult thing to do.
It's a process.
And, back in the past, it was even more difficult. You may take months and months just to
get somewhere.
I don't know. Yeah, just to get somewhere, not that far. But
not that far.
But now you can get almost anywhere, and the world is shrinking. And it's shrinking part mostly because the internet now has given us up close and personal, like us, eyeball to eyeball, sitting here having a conversation.
Yep.
And we're at least, 400 miles away from each other.
Mhm.
And we could just as soon be 1,000 miles away from each other. It doesn't make any difference. Distance becomes irrelevant. So travel cheaply. Go get on the internet and search for communities that you have an interest in or that you're curious about and you just like to see what they're all about.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have an interest in, but you think it's kind of interesting that these people, do think about these things, whatever it is. And you will, in if you do that, within probably 6 months, you'll be a different person. You will have grown up because you will have stretched your mind and your knowledge and your appreciation over a lot of things that otherwise you never would have connected. And you'd go from provincial, to sophisticated. Well, those are probably not really good words, but you go from having a little picture to a bigger picture. That's a better way to say it. And bigger pictures are always better, more informed, and less of a tendency to look down on people. Because once you've met all sorts of different kinds of people, you stop being so judgmental. Oh,
Mm.
so and so, those people, they're crazy. They're all lunatics, and everybody that doesn't think exactly like you do and agree with the things you think, they're all stupid and lost and whatever, some negative attitude toward them. And the people think just like you. Of course, they're smart, they're brilliant, they understand, you know. And of course, that's not true. That's just what our ego tells us, because our ego always wants to pat us on a back and say, "Oh, you're doing just great. You've got this. You're fine."
Yep.
That's what our ego is always trying to tell us that. So many have this kind of gut reaction to people who are different with, nah, keep them away, stay away from me. Um, I don't, I don't want to be around you because you're stupid or do things that, I think are wild and crazy, but they're just people. And some people are wild and crazy, and you may not want to be around them, but that's okay. It's not that you have to join every group out there. You
Right.
just pick the ones you like, the ones
Yeah.
that do resonate with you, and
Yeah.
they will be different. There'll be different people that you'll meet with different ideas. So, this whole idea of socializing, meeting people, gaining bigger perspectives, embracing diversity of all sorts, whether it's what's the big topic today, sexual diversity. That's one of the big things going on in our culture right now. You need to embrace diversity. There are all sorts of different people who feel different ways for whatever reason they feel that way. And there's no need to judge them. Oh, they're right or wrong to feel that way. It's not about right or wrong. It's the way they feel. And you need to give them respect and interact and get to know them and see if you'll probably find out they're kind of just like us. They're not all that different than we are. They just have a few different ideas and ways of looking at the world than we do. And well, is that a problem? Shouldn't be. Let people be how they are. You don't have to make everybody, you're not the master of the universe that needs to fix everyone so that they're just like you. You know, that's that's not what life is all about. So, yeah, that's the idea of community, of getting out there, of growing, getting larger pictures of things. And it doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything you see everywhere.
Right.
You can still say, well, I've been with that group a while, and that's just not for me. Or, oh, they're a lot of nice people, but they sure have some wacky ideas that I don't agree with. That's okay. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. But if it's negative, oh, those people are awful. They're stupid. We need to get rid of them. That kind of thing.
Hmm.
Then that is your ego and your fear talking. And that means you're not so very grown up. That's not a good approach. So you don't have to agree with everyone, but you should be positive, at least being open to seeing whether you like this group or not. And also letting other people be whoever they are and enjoy them just for the people they are and not judge them for for all the ideas they have. Because you can have a person who has a couple of really wacky ideas be a really nice person. And
Yes.
just because they've got some wacky ideas doesn't mean you can't enjoy connecting with them in
Right.
ways where you do connect. So if there's somebody out there that believes what is the moon's made of green cheese and they're just sure that's true, well, that's okay. Let them believe that. You don't have to believe it, but
Right.
it still may be a really nice person that you can enjoy being with. So
Mhm.
don't be so judgmental. Don't be so judgmental. And the way people are judgmental is say, if you're not like me, then I don't like you, and you're wrong. And they see themselves as being the epitome of right and correct and the right ideas, and everything they disagree with is wrong. Well, that's called arrogance. And it's a very common attribute of ego. And you need to get over that and not judge everybody by your own gold standard of perfection. So,
Ego is not your amigo.
no.
Ego won't help you.
So,
No,
yeah.
it
So I'm
seems
not,
like it's helping, but it's really not.
no. So
No.
I'm not saying, give up, you have to give up things that you believe in, or give up things that are important to you, or do things that you otherwise don't want to do. No, be yourself, be who
Yeah.
you are, be authentic. But there's there's a lot to learn from people who are different. You just have to accept that it's okay for people to be different,
Mhm.
that the way you are is not necessarily the gold standard of perfection. It's just the way you are.
Mhm.
And from their viewpoint, you're kind of different and
Right.
you're kind of confused and you think wacky things. That's the way they look at you.
Right.
And both of you ought to be able to still get along and learn from each other and just
Yes.
let each other be. And for those areas where you can connect, well, connect there. And eventually your appreciation for those people and their ideas will start to broaden, and you will get less and less narrow-minded and less provincial, less and less stuck in a little picture, and your world will start to grow. And as it does, wow, you're living in a bigger world with so much richer, so much more interesting world than the little old rut world that you were stuck in. So
Right.
it's a good thing to get out, connect, and be non-judgmental. Let people be, but be yourself. Always be who you are. So if there's this bunch of people and they do things that you think you really don't want to have any part of, well, then don't have any part of that. That's okay. Maybe they're all into taking sharp things and scratching themselves on their arms because it makes them feel good or something. Who knows what they might be into? And you can say, nah, but they still may be interesting people. You could learn from them and maybe connect with them and try to understand, why are they like that? Why are they doing what they're doing? What is the point? And is there any way you could, you know, be friends, make connections with them, and just let them be a little goofy? That's not a problem.
No,
Everybody's a little goofy, so you
everybody's a
just
little weird.
you just have to accept that and let that be okay. Let
Yes.
the differences be differences, and not be so judgmental. But
Yes.
anyway, yeah, that's why the kind of things you're talking about are very important things, because as your reality grows, your potentials for making choices grows, more interesting choices, more meaningful choices. And then you start growing up, and then you start seeing the world differently, and then your choices change and improve, and the whole thing starts going in a positive direction. And a year or two later, you're a very different person and you're having a lot more fun. And you spend more time smiling and you spend less time complaining and less time shaking your fist and being angry, and your whole world just gets better. Your relationships get better. Everything in your life just gets more positive and happier. And who wouldn't want that?
I don't know. You just don't see it coming, and as things start evolving and your picture start getting bigger and then things start changing really quickly. So you don't know that's there until you're there, so
Mhm.
it's almost like there's no carrots there. It's like, hey, if you come this way, you can have this world and this reality to live in if you just come this way, but there's no instructions here, Tom. You just have to feel your way through
No,
it.
no. And even when you run into those groups that you really don't want to have anything to do with, you still learn things from that too. If you get to know them and understand them somewhat, you'll learn something important, even if it's learning what you don't want to do and ways that you don't want to think. You can learn from positive and from negative, but you
Right.
have to understand it first. If you just judge it from afar, then you're understanding nothing. All
No.
you're doing is feeding your ego. So even those things that you don't care for, to kind of connect with them enough that you can understand it is valuable, even if it just helps you stay away from it or helps you not encourage it, in other people, or not encourage that in yourself, or see the parallels between, oh, wow, they've gone off that deep end. And then maybe you'll look and say, well, I think maybe I've gone off, a different deep end in the opposite direction. And that may help you grow, you know?
Yeah, I've been off the deep end in other directions too.
Yeah,
There's a whole lot of them to go off the deep end
yeah.
here. You can
But,
get, those beliefs. You start building up these beliefs about how reality is. And then as you're living your life, well, it just starts contradicting itself. And so then you have to kind of backstep and say, wait a minute, what's going on here? Because it's not
mhm,
working and it's not matching up. It doesn't
yeah,
fit. So
yeah,
it really helps to be open-minded and skeptical, and you don't have to take on other people's beliefs. You can keep your own and just be
yeah,
yourself. And I have found that when I'm just open to all people, what they have to say to me, that I can take in the information. I don't have to judge it, but I don't have to take it in as my belief. If it's way
yeah,
outside my wheelhouse, I can leave it right there where I picked it up at.
yeah,
It doesn't mean that I have to be that way, believe that way.
yeah,
It's not like a you need to be like me contest, because I found out long ago I'm not like anybody else anyway. So none of that's ever going to work anyway. So as I
yeah,
started, looking around and finding others that are not like me and different people, and then seeing these communities come together like I have, it's just been, wow, this is a real eye opener here. It's a real eye opener,
mhm,
and everybody's kind of trying to find out, what is this all about? Because connection feels good to us when we do start making those connections with others, and it does feel good. And then comes the part where you have to work through your fears and get your ego out of the way, and be kind
mhm,
to each other. It just takes a little bit of work. And once you can get to that place where you can just be kind to everyone, above all, be kind is what I try to do.
mhm,
And if you can get to there, then you can have an open mind to take in the data. Just take it in, because I found that, back in my history, I believed what I believed. I couldn't take in any new information. Then my ego would get in there and go, they're wrong. And then, you're just twirling around in this thing. It doesn't make any sense at all.
yep, that happens. That happens to most people. Most people kind of get in a rut with their beliefs. They get someplace where what they do, their ego and their beliefs all kind of, are mutually saying, I'm okay, so you okay, we're all okay, so let's not anybody rock the boat. Let's just, oh, those people over there, they're different than us. Let's get rid of them, because they're not okay. That's kind of typical. It's part of our herd instinct.
Is
You
it?
know,
Is that where that
yeah,
comes from?
yeah, it's part of that. it's not really, humans aren't really, don't travel in herds, but it's an instinct for safety. You know, the herd instinct is that if you have a herd of animals and one of them jumps and hollers and runs, everybody around them jumps and runs just the same, because they figure, well, they did that for some reason and something scary must be around here, so we all need to go. You know, that's kind of a herd instinct for safety. And if one of the herd animals is somehow different, you know, doesn't have, you know, I don't know, has a limp, or maybe has a different coloration or something, they tend to be shunned by herd animals. Herd animals will take that different one and they'll push it away. They won't want that different animal there. So in herd animals, sameness is safe.
Ah,
Sameness is safe, and
right.
things that aren't the same are dangerous. So
Oh,
if you look around and you see something and you've never seen that before, you're wary of it. That
right.
could be, that could be dangerous. But see, we're not herd animals. We should be a little smarter than that. You know,
We can
that's
overcome that instinct, right?
right.
We can write a new narrative over that that says that's not
Exactly.
what's happening. We're not out in nature where something's going to come up and eat you right now. You are in an environment where you're already safe. So just like rewriting some of those narratives over those instincts, because we can do that as consciousness, right? We
Yes,
can overwrite what the mainframe or the narrative
we
of the
can.
avatar's instincts is. We have
Right.
that ability.
We can. We don't have to be a slave to our instincts. Now, our instincts will always be there and they'll prod us and they'll give us inclinations, but we don't have to act on them. We can say, yeah, okay, that's a whole new bunch of people. And
Some of them look weird.
some of them look a little strange,
Yeah.
but maybe I'll just go over and see what they're doing and see who they are. And you may go over and they're maybe unfriendly. Well, if they're unfriendly, then you back away and leave them alone. If they're
Don't go back.
friendly, yeah, if they're friendly, then you get to know them a little bit. Make
Right.
get some relationship. See what they're about. You know, why do they all wear that little hat with a beanie on top, with the little propeller? Why do they all have propellers on their heads? You
Yeah.
know?
What are they doing?
Yeah. What is that? Is it some club or some group? But they're all walking around with propeller hats on their heads and
Maybe
go
they
over
know how to fly.
go over and talk to them.
Yeah.
And
Maybe they'll give me a beanie hat so I can fly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
anyway,
interesting.
that's just an attitude. Most of the things that take us that will transport us from a life of struggle and a life of being unhappy and complaining and one thing after another. We're just constantly dealing with problems and issues and things that just aren't the way they're supposed to be, and our life is just full of the stress. That's the way most people are. And all you have to do to get rid of that and get to a life that is full of peace and happiness and good feelings and smiles and satisfaction, the only thing you have to do is change your attitude. It's just attitudinal. If you just shift your attitude, you can go from being miserable to being happy. And that's all it takes, just a simple shift in attitude. Let people be however they are. Learn to get along and share what you can share. And there are the things you can't share, well, then leave them alone. You see? So it's just simple. It's hard to do. It's simple to see as far as the philosophy or the logic of it is simple, but just changing that attitude, realizing that everybody lives in their own reality to some extent. Now there's a lot of things shared. We both see the orange rug behind you. You know it's there, and I can see that it's there. And there's a dresser back there, and it's brown, and we both know that. So there's things that are shared in our reality, but we also have things in our reality that are just ours, just the way we see it, just our viewpoint. And so does everyone else. And we have to realize that everybody thinks that the way they think and their attitudes and their feelings are the right way, the best way. Everybody thinks that. Yes, even all those other people over there that you think are totally, lost and crazy, they think that what they're doing is the best way. And they look at you and think that you're lost and acting kind of crazy. So you need to realize that that's just the way life is. Everyone lives in their own reality, makes their own choices with their own attitudes and their own perspectives. And that's okay. You can live with different people. You see, that's embracing diversity. But when the ego runs your life and fear runs your life and beliefs run your life, then you get very adamant that everybody needs to be the way you are. And if they're not, we need to get rid of them.
Or fix them.
Or fix them.
We can fix this. We can help you be just like us.
Yeah. You're right. And all those other people that out there that are different than you are saying, no, thank you. I really don't want to be fixed, but I could maybe fix you.
Right.
Yeah.
This is all you need to do.
Yes.
I'm going to write a formula for you and you can do this. I know you can. We'll help you. We'll give you good vibes so you can do it. Isn't it true about those vibrations that we hold? Like, when we're in a negative mindset, we talked before about this being a reflective place that we live in. So if we're constantly in this negative attitude, isn't that just reflecting back to us and just bringing us more of it?
Exactly.
It's almost
right.
like a negative feedback reverb loop, right? And it gets a momentum in a life of its own, And then the bad part is you don't even realize that you're a negative person, that you're being negative. I know that when I was a negative person, I still have negative things. Of course, everybody does. But when I was way more negative than I am now, I had no idea. I was such a negative person, but I didn't like the negative person I was, and neither did anybody else. So, as I started trying to shift my thinking and my attitude, then everything else started shifting. So I think that it's just not being aware that you're being negative, and that how can you change something when you're not aware of it?
Yeah, that's why it's difficult. It's easy to talk about, but that's why it's so difficult. Yes, people who are self-centered never realize that they're self-centered. Other people will look at them and interact with them and say, wow, that person's really self-centered. But nobody who's self-centered will ever see themselves as self-centered.
Because it's all about you.
Yeah, they'll never see that. So anybody who is, I don't know, whatever we say, in some kind of a, ego, fear, belief-based, making choices out of their ego, out of their fear. It's the fear and the ego and the beliefs that drive their choices. Mm-hmm. They will never see that, because when you believe something in your mind, that becomes a fact. That's what believing means. I believe that means I think that's a fact. Well, very few of the things we believe are facts. Very, very, very few of the things we believe are facts.
I'm still looking for some facts. I'm still looking for what's real too, but I haven't found it yet.
But very few of them. Most of them are just opinions and attitudes that we've learned. They're not facts at all, but we treat them that way. So we see ourselves as always right, on the right track, thinking the right way, and those other people that oppose us are wrong and need to be dealt with. So that's the trap that you get into when you have beliefs and when you have fears and when you have ego, is that you can't see reality the way it really is. You can only see it through your ego, fear, and beliefs. You interpret everything through those three things, and you're mostly wrong. It's not like that at all. You just think it's like that because that's your belief and that's your fear and that's your ego. And if you're negative, you do create negative things happening around you and to you. The more negative you are, the easier it is to even be more negative, and it just keeps building. And some people I know can hardly say anything without complaining, without saying something negative about other people. I mean, just open their mouth and the negativity just comes out. It just, when I was growing up, one of the things that my parents told me many times, because obviously I didn't get it very, very quickly, so they had to keep repeating it. And that was, if you can't say something nice, just don't say anything at all. And I think that's a pretty wise attitude, because the negativity never helps. You think I'm not being negative. I'm just trying to show them how and why they're wrong so that they can fix themselves. I'm just trying to help them by explaining to them why they're wrong. But you're not really trying to help them. You're imposing your free will on them. They've come to wherever they are based on their free will choices and understandings, and you've come to wherever you are, and you're trying to impose your self on other people. And you have to let people be
They are.
just the way they are. So the negative thinking creates negative things happening around you. If you are always complaining and negative, then your tire will go flat. Your cup won't have any water in it when you're thirsty. Just stuff will happen
Yeah.
to be negative all over your world. People will, when they give you change back at the store, they'll shortchange you. You'll get the one.
More angry about.
Yeah, you'll buy something and it'll be defective and you'll have to send it back. Just all those little unpleasant things that happen in life, you draw them in like a magnet when you're negative, when you're complaining and fussing and can't stand other people and all, up in a whip about, how you're right and they're wrong. That just creates a negative life. And you then start to feel like you're, God doesn't like me. I just, if I didn't, if it wasn't for bad luck, what's the song say? If it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have no luck at all, right?
Yes.
And you kind of get in this place where you're kind of depressed because
It's like
your
a
whole
victim mentality you get into. It's like, well, the world does, this place just doesn't like me, or something's doing something to me, and really, it's your perspective, and you're really doing it to yourself. But inadvertently, you're not trying to do that. It's just doing that because of what you're thinking and what you're feeling.
And then we start to get angry because we don't feel good, because why me? I got 2 flat tires, this year, why me? And then you start blaming things on other people.
Victim mentality comes in, then you get stuck there.
Right.
Darn, Tom.
Yeah. There's a lot of, here's a truism, and I guess one of the other reasons why it's very hard to grow up, and that is, for any choice that you make, any important choice, a significant choice, not just a trivial choice, but any really significant choice that you have to make, there are usually 1 or maybe 2 good choices, and maybe 1 choice that's not so bad, but not that good either. But guess what? There's literally hundreds of bad choices. There's like 1,000 ways to make a bad choice, 1,000 ways to fail, but only 1 or 2 ways actually to do it right. So doing it right takes some thought. You have to think about it. You have to want to do it right. You have to have an intent to grow and make good choices. Because if you don't, and you just do the stuff that that you do because that's what you do, then you tend to make a lot of poor choices. And when you make a lot of poor choices, that's when you end up in this negative reality where you and everything else is negative, and you, don't like people.
You
You'd,
know,
you'd rather you'd rather just go live with your dog somewhere where there aren't any people around, because everything is so yucky. Well, you create that reality. It's not that everything is so yucky, it's that you've created a negative space for yourself. Everything isn't so yucky. Most people, even when they're weird, are nice. You give them a chance.
right?
If you're not so judgmental, you can.
Because there's things that overlap where it is positive and there's good things there, but if you're focusing on the negative, well, then you can't even see it.
Right. Exactly right.
It's
People
invisible.
have many dimensions
They
to them,
do. They're
and
so vastly interesting. There's
yes,
so many things to humans. We're not simple beings.
and you can always find something that you can connect with, and something nice that you can say,
Yes.
something positive to connect to. And
Yes.
if there's this negative stuff that you just don't connect to, well, it's all right. Let that be there. You don't have to go dive into it. You can
Yeah, just don't focus there. Just
just don't.
focus on the
Yeah,
good part.
exactly. So
Just
then you
ignore
start turning, negative relationships into positive relationships. Oh, I don't want to go see Uncle Harry. He's always complaining and fussing and telling me
oh
what to do and this kind of stuff. Well, Uncle Harry will have some things that you could talk about. You just have to change the subject. And if he just refuses to, to do anything other than complain, well, you just walk away. Say, well, see you later, Uncle Harry. Next Christmas. You know,
no.
you you just
Yeah.
you just don't hang around that kind of person. But for the most part, you can know that Uncle Harry is a real whatever. Maybe he's a hunter or a baseball fan, or maybe he paints, or who knows what he might do. Maybe he's a fisherman. And then so you open up a conversation about that. Hey, Uncle Harry, when's the last time you went fishing? What'd you catch? And you'll see the subject will go off, and he'll just lighten up and start to glow and be telling you all about his last fishing trip. And you can just find out more about him and get to know him in ways just by steering the conversation and then by listening more than talking. You find you learn a whole lot more if you listen more than you talk. If you talk more than you listen, you learn very little because you're self-centered, and you just can't but share your magnificence with everyone else.
You're so funny. It's
So,
true though. It's
yeah.
true. Well, I need to talk because this is really all about me, y'all. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's just another component of love and caring about other. You make it about them and not
Mhm.
about yourself. So when you're in front of someone, if you make it about them, if you can do that and think about what is this person like? What lights them up? What do they like to do? It's a vast book standing in front of you, you know nothing about because you're
Yeah,
living in your own reality.
right.
It reminds me of that story in the Bible of the Tower of Babel, how if we're getting all these different data streams, well, that's going to make it harder for us to communicate and connect because we're getting different data stream than the other person standing there. So it's nothing alike. We live in all different realities ourselves. I'm in one reality, you're in another one, and it's a wonder we can talk at all, I think. But I think that it's like you say, it's getting rid of fear in that belief system so we can get to
Yeah.
the loving others and
Yeah,
getting rid of that fear because
well,
then you can connect.
well, let's look at that. If you have a whole bunch of people and they're all different, a lot of diversity here, and all these people and they're all very different. So that's your babble. It seems like everybody else is babbling, and only you seem to understand what's really going
Yeah.
on. And so you're in this place, and so let's say there's two different ways to react to that.
Okay.
One way is by being negative and not saying, "Oh, go away, you go away. Gosh, it's so many people here and they're so stupid. Let me go just be with my dog," and you can do that by backing away and being negative. And when you do that, the total result is if everybody does that, then you have chaos. You have no connection, you have chaos, everybody's angry, everybody's upset, and life is terrible. Everybody's grouchy, nothing works well. Now let's look at the other way. You know, if you're in this place and everybody's very different, there's diversity everywhere, and you just don't really connect to anything so much. But if you're positive and you say, oh, hi, you know, I eat cornflakes every morning. What do you have for breakfast? You know, you just start talking, whatever. And if you're positive, and then you find out, oh, I said something that hit their button, you know, well, then you steer the conversation away from that. You apologize,
Oopsie.
and you go on and talk about something else. But if everybody then is trying to be positive with everybody, then what do you get in the end?
Cooperation.
You get cooperation and caring, and everybody's
Yeah.
happy, and they're doing good things, and they
Yeah.
try to help you. And if you need, you know, you need a little help, you know, whatever, you'll get help. They'll say, sure, I'll carry that bag for you, lady. You know, you just get, you get help because it's all positive, even though everybody's different. So there's just two ways to approach you suddenly caught in the middle of a diverse situation where you don't really know anybody. Be positive, make connections, avoid the negative stuff. Something negative turns up, go away from it. Change the subject, talk about something else. Don't go back to that with that person. Okay, that's just their thing, and let them have that thing. You just don't have to go there with them. And
Right.
so you can just see, you know, which one of those places would you like to live? You know, well, I'd rather live where everybody's positive. That would be so much better.
Hmm.
People would be helpful and caring of each other just because they would be, because everybody's helpful and caring to them. So, you know, they would be that way. But if you live in that negative place where everybody's angry at everybody else, wow, what a rotten place to have to exist. And that's mostly what our world's like. We're in a world where everybody's angry with everybody else. Everybody's unhappy. Everybody's struggling. Nobody can find the peace and meaning and significance in life that they're looking for. And it's all negative. And it's not a good place to live. And you can change it just by changing your attitude. You don't change it by changing all those wrong people to be just like you. Now there's no diversity. You know, we're all the same, and we're all just like me. What a wonderful place to be. Oh, that would be a horrible place to be. How boring. You know, you wouldn't ever learn anything. You'd never grow up. You'd never change. You'd be stuck.
Stuck.
That would not be a good place to be. There'd be very little choices that had any meaning in them if everybody was just like you. So diversity is a good thing. Welcome it, embrace it. Don't be frightened by it. Go get to know it. Even if you do that very gingerly because you're a little afraid, but go do it anyway, and you'll find out that it's not so bad as you thought.
Jump in there. The water's fine. Everybody's going to be okay. You know,
Yeah.
with the internet, Tom, you know, and how we are kind of coming together and communicating, and then all this stuff is coming out of it because, you know, we still have negative attitudes about around stuff. I think in time it'll get better as we communicate more, you know, because we'll learn that you can't just be ugly on the internet, and it's not any different than being ugly to people when you're out in, you know, face to face, that it still has that vibration there, and it still affects other people, even if we are in this virtual, you know, like we're in this Zoom thing here. I think that with all of that going on, and then, you know, the information is coming in that, you know, maybe this isn't a materialistic world we live in. So it's almost like there's so much going on right now. There's just a lot there that it seems like it could right itself as it moves forward. But it's just almost like it's just in turmoil. Like you talked about, every time we go from one paradigm to another, a paradigm shift, that it causes chaos first. And then things start settling in, and then people start figuring it out. But, you
Yeah.
know, I think that's part of what's going on too, right?
Yes, well, paradigm shifts are very difficult for most people to do. They have to kind of rearrange their sense of reality.
Yes.
rearrange themselves of, you know, change their attitudes of what's good and bad, what's right and wrong, whether this is a good way or that's a good way. So there's a lot of things that they have beliefs about. Well, I've always believed, and my parents taught me that, it has to be like this, and you take all that stuff and now you change it. A paradigm shift means it's a reality shift. There's some part of your world, your reality, your beliefs, and your habits that don't work the way you thought they worked.
Right.
You know, that's different. It's not the way you thought it would be,
Yep.
and that's a hard thing for people to do. People like sameness. They avoid diversity and they cling to sameness. They
Yeah.
cling to their egos. They cling to their fear, and that's unfortunate because that just leads them to an unhappy place, and they stay full of stress and unhappiness and struggle mostly for their whole lives. And they they contribute that unhappy struggling, they kind of add their unhappy struggling vibe to the world,
Yeah.
and they help keep the world in that, locked in that space, because we change it by changing ourselves.
Yeah.
So, they're pulling the world down into a negative space, a hostile space, a space where everybody's angry. And that's what they're creating. And that's what they live in. And they don't realize that if you could get, a billion of us to just be positive for a week, it'd probably change everything.
Yeah.
It would probably change everything.
Hmm.
But people are who they are, and they have to come to understand paradigm shifts as they can. You can't reach out and grab them and slap them and say you need to change because now you're being arrogant. If you do that, you're back in the I'm right and you're wrong and you need to change, and that's not helpful. You
No.
just have to let them be the way they are and hope that they will one day grow up and become more positive and less negative, and stop blaming everything on somebody else and realize the negativity in their life is what they bring there. That's their that's their negativity. They don't have to react that way. They don't have to be negative about their reactions. They choose to be negative in their reactions because of their ego. I'm right, everybody else is wrong. And these people are the bad people. If we could just get rid of all of them, everybody would be happy. And that's just not true. Nobody would be happy. Everybody'd be just as miserable,
Yeah.
because that's not the problem. We just think that's a problem. The
It's
problem is
us. We're the problem.
we're the problem.
We're the
Right,
problem. And that's why there's that saying, be the change you want to see in the world.
right.
That's the only thing that does change. Is you can just change yourself. We're not here to change other people, even though we really want to sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard not to try to, change people, we say.
Well, if
Oh,
they would just be like this, then life would be much better.
right.
But see, there's the other way where you can leave them the way they are and just get to know them and kind of see what makes them tick. And then you can learn a whole bunch more. Then you get a bigger picture of the way, our realities kind of work here. Then if you're getting a bigger picture, then you can kind of go with like the new paradigms that are coming in, and you can kind of at least take in the new information, and say, well, maybe this isn't a physical place. They've been looking for physical matter forever and they still can't find it. But it's like, but this is a physical world. I can see it, feel it, it is too. It's like, well, if the scientists, to me, if they can't find it, then I'm not sure if it's there. Because I know I can't find it. So, I mean, I can find it and see it, but in all of the experiments that have been done and the double slit, it's just in the placebo effect. I was a nurse. So it was like, wait a minute, the world can't be working like that, because that wouldn't exist. The placebo effect wouldn't exist if this was just a physical, materialistic world.
No.
It wouldn't work. You wouldn't be able to use your mind and make your body do something. It's not logical. And so once I started seeing some of that, I had to go and reevaluate things and see what's going on. And I started reading, and that's how I found your work. And I'm glad I did, because it's been a wonderful journey thus far.
Yeah, well, everybody should kind of see themselves as a searcher, somebody that's trying to understand more, to gain perspective, to
Yeah.
understand why people are different and why they are the way they are. And it's just that growing thing, it's being a searcher, to go out there and interact and try to understand and pull it all in. Not that you have to accept it all, but just you have to see that it's there and connect to it and see what's really there, not just your perception, your belief about the way those people are, but and the only way to do that is to get down with them, live with them a bit, talk to them, and then you'll have a better perception. If your perception is just what your fear, your ego, and your beliefs tell you, well, then you're stuck. But if you actually get to know people, then you'll find almost nobody is as scary as you think they are, or as wrong as you think they are. And this world is big enough for a lot of different people, a lot of different kinds of people, a lot of different ideas. As long as those ideas are positive, there should be no conflict between them.
Right. There wouldn't be conflict.
No.
There wouldn't be any of that. You would just be basically just taking in data, writing the narratives that you want to, write for yourself in your life. You'd be positive, you'd have love, be caring about others. And so you wouldn't want to go throw rocks at other people because you think you're right and they're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, but people would say, yes, but there's, I have the truth. And what they're saying just isn't true. You see, and it's all about truth, but the only really fundamental truth is that love is the answer. That's the thing that's fundamentally true. Everything else, the things that we know that are true or false, that are ones and zeros in probability, a zero being this does not exist, or this is not that way, or a one, this is that way. There's very little in our life and in our world that belongs as a one or zero, in probability. Most everything is somewhere in between. And that's why we should always stay skeptical of everything. Don't believe anything. Belief is one of the problems. Belief and ego and fear are all part of the same thing. Fear is the creator of ego and belief.
Yes.
But don't believe anything. Be skeptical of everything. But while you're being skeptical of everything, two things to keep in mind. One, the person you need to be most skeptical of is yourself. So put most of your skepticism, look in the mirror, and that's where most of the skepticism needs to go. Do you really have the market cornered on being right?
Right.
Be skeptical of yourself. And the second thing is that you need to be open-minded. Because if you're just skeptical and not open-minded, then you're just trapped in your skeptical beliefs. See, being closed-minded means you're trapped with your beliefs. So your ego and your beliefs are what's running your choices. So you need to be open-minded so you can say, well, okay, what I've heard about this is that, but I'll go find out for myself. Because if it's not your experience, it's not your truth. So you have to go find out by yourself. If somebody says, oh, all those people with those little propellers on their head, they're all evil. Don't mess with them. And okay, you can say, well, all right, I sort of respect you, so I'll put that at 0.5 probability. 0.5 says they're evil because I really don't know. I don't have any personal information. Then you go meet them. Go hang out with them for a while, live with them a little bit. And you can maybe move that 0.5 to a 0.9. Oh, yeah, they really were evil. They tried to pull my toenails out. They were awful. Or you may slide it down to like a 0.01. They were okay. Yeah, a little confused about how things work, but general, just like everybody else, they're okay. And make your own choices. So those are just a couple of basic ideas. And that is, be
Mhm.
skeptical of everything. Be open-minded about everything. And find out for yourself. If it's not your experience, it's not your truth. And if it's somebody else's truth, we call that a belief.
Right.
Somebody else tells you or whatever, then and you just believe it because that's what they told
What
you.
they said.
Well, then you're in a belief trap. Even if that person that told you that was your parents,
Right.
you
Have to get your
once
own personal
right,
evidence
once you
in
grow up,
life. That's the only thing you can really trust is what experiences you're having. And if you have the experience, well, you've got to believe it because it's your experience and
yeah,
you had it.
and in that experience, you have to always remain skeptical and open-minded in
So
your
you take in new
interaction.
data. If
Right.
you're not open-minded, you're still wrapped around in your own beliefs, like you said, and you can't take in any new data.
No, you're trapped.
Yeah. And
You
for
can,
us to evolve and grow, we have to be able to take in new data all the time.
right. Yeah.
It's like a
Other,
flowing system.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way it works. It's not very a complex idea once you understand it. It's just hard to implement
Yes.
because it takes you to change who you are, and that's not an easy thing for us to do.
No. Isn't that why we're here? So we can change and evolve ourselves so that we can become beings of love instead of beings of fear.
That's why we're here.
Well,
And
I
not
think
too.
love is the answer too, Tom. I've
Yeah.
seen love do miraculous things here.
Yeah.
Isn't it the energy that underlies the whole thing?
That's the whole purpose and point of us because that's fundamentally our nature. That's what drives us. You know, in technical terms, the purpose is the lower entropy, but lower entropy means love is the answer because caring and cooperation is what creates low entropy in social systems. And we create a
And a
social
social
system.
system. It
We
is a
are a
social
social
system.
system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we are a social system.
Yeah.
And so love lowers entropy because it creates cooperation in diversity
Right.
and everybody is when they're cooperating, then that's going to help the whole system to evolve and be
Exactly.
something better than what it was before.
Hmm. Yeah. If you live on an island all by yourself and you're the only human that lives there, then you can do anything you want, anytime you want, any way you want, because there's nobody else there. So you get to always do it your way. But if even one person comes and lives on that island with you, now you can't do just whatever you want, however you want, whenever you want. If the two of you are going to optimize your survival and your ability to do things, then you'll have to cooperate. You'll have to work together. Now you can't do just whatever you want. Now,
Right?
if you decide the two of you are going to fight and you're not going to cooperate and you don't trust each other, then you're probably worse off than you were with the two
Right.
people than you were just being there by yourself.
Well, now you're negative.
Yeah, now you're negative. Now that negativity, yes, builds something worse than being there by yourself. But if you can cooperate and care for each other and take care of each other and help each other, well, now two people are going to be able to do more because, if you're going to build a shelter out of heavy logs, then two people are a whole lot better than one. So you can do things that you couldn't do otherwise. So cooperation opens up a whole new realm of possibilities, whereas fear closes off possibilities. So that's the point. If you're in a social system, then if you want that social system to work well for everybody, then you need to be caring and cooperative. You need to have compassion. It's about love. It's about what can I give, not what can I
I
get,
get
what can I take.
right.
So that's the key. That's just the nature of a social system. It
Right.
always works better for everybody if everyone's cooperative
Instead of
rather than
fighting.
Yeah, instead of fighting. No, my way. No, my way. No, my way. You
Right.
know, that's kind of where we are. And if you had 3 people on an island, then the need to cooperate's even more, because you could do even more with 3 people than you could do with just 2.
Right.
And so on it goes. So because we're a social system, then the way we optimize that social system is through caring and cooperation. The way we get less out of that social system, de-optimize it, I guess would be the word. The way we turn that social system into something that is not nearly as useful as it could be is because we have fear, because we have ego, because we have these beliefs and we don't care about other people. We're self-centered. It's all about us. Our way is the right way, and to hell with everybody else. Do it my way or the highway, this kind of thing. And when everybody feels that way, then nothing works very well.
And it's miserable on top of it.
And it's miserable. Everybody's angry all the time with everybody else, which is pretty much the world we live in, right? That's the problem. So it's kind of obvious when you look at that,
Yeah.
The logic is, guys, if you want to be happy, if you want to optimize, life for everybody, then you have to care. It's about love. It's about care. It's about cooperation. It's about sharing. That's what it's about. And then everybody can be doing well.
Yes.
And there'll be very little negativity and complaining. Only people who will complain are people who didn't grow up. The people who are negative, that aren't sharing, aren't willing, still sitting there in a little corner saying, everybody's wrong, you need to do it my way. Those people will be unhappy and they'll be angry and they'll strike out, and they'll make life miserable for themselves.
Yes.
So that is so obvious that even a 3-year-old should be able to understand that picture, but that's a bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a simple picture.
It's very elegant.
Yeah. So what's your purpose? Your purpose is to be loved, to be caring, to be cooperative, to share, to be helpful. And all of us will do better that way.
When you care about others, what happens, I've, seen it in my world, is when we care about others and we're not always thinking about ourselves, then they tend to start caring about you. And it's like a feedback loop.
Absolutely.
You start caring about them, then they care about you and start loving you because you've given them something. Because, as you're giving, then that makes them want to give back, And
Absolutely.
so then it can create this feedback loop where you cooperate with each other and share ideas instead of judging and all that other stuff.
If people are doing something nice for you, then you appreciate that, which means you'd like to do something nice for them if you get a chance.
Yes.
That's just the way it is. So that builds on itself. Mm-hmm. And just like positiveness builds on itself, negativeness builds on itself. If somebody's not nice to you, then you don't want to be nice to them. And if you get a chance, you'll give them a little elbow in the side or something, you'll be annoyed with them, or you'll get even, you'll get back, you'll do something not nice to them. So that just continues to spiral downhill, whereas being nice to each other continues to spiral uphill.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
Uphill is where all the happiness is. Downhill is where all the misery is. Very simple.
We can create heaven here, or we can create hell. It's up to us to choose, right?
It's up to us to choose right. Yes, we have to choose right, not choose wrong.
Yes, that sounds like a really good idea, Tom. And I would love to end this podcast here on Love is the Answer, and that, we appreciate you and everything that you do to help assist everybody here to see bigger pictures. And I know for the last 20 years, that's all you've been doing is helping others, being caring and kind and loving. So it looks like you've got it figured out, Tom. We're just trying to catch up.
No, well, and I thank you, Cheryl, for doing the podcast, putting it out there, helping people maybe get a glimpse of a better way. Maybe somebody will listen to this and say, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense. If I can't say something nice, I just won't say anything at all. I'll be a little nicer, a little more positive, and see what happens." And what they'll find happens is that their whole life gets better and better and better.
Well, thank you for everything, Tom. And thank you for coming and sharing your time with us today. I appreciate everything you do. And I'm sure that this is going to be really helpful for others.
Well, I hope so. That's the whole point, right? That's what we do here. We try to put out the news that people can use, and everybody has to change themselves. But sometimes just any little thing that they've come across might trigger that growth. So I appreciate, Cheryl, that you made this opportunity for us to get together and talk. And I also hope that somebody out there will see this and get a little aha moment and maybe change themselves just a little. You don't have to make the big change all at once, just a little, because one change leads to the next, leads to the next. And you've been changing yourself now for probably what, 3-4 years you've been on this path.
It's going on 6.
6 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, makes a big difference, but it has to go one step at a time. You can't just say, "All right, I'm negative, I'll be positive tomorrow." It just doesn't work like that. So you have to have patience and
Yes.
just start someplace and keep working at it and keep going, and eventually you'll get there. So
Yes.
thank you, Cheryl.
You're very welcome, Tom. And we'll just continue on this mission of hope and love and see where we end up.
Good.
All right. Thank you.